welcome to Wellness Must podcast. Today our guest is Dr. Ali Abu Rashid. Wherever anything happening in the longevity space, we see him there. So this is your title, but we believe in stories. And I'm sure something shaped you, something brought you to this space. So I would love to listen from you. What shaped you or brought you to this space?
It's a lifelong, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a lifelong thing. So it's not, unfortunately, I don't have an exciting story where something happened in my life that kind of pushed me in a direction where I would pursue a longevity or a biohacking or healthy aging or health span, whatever you want to call it. But it's a lifelong endeavor. And I've started very young doing this, sort of being aware of my own health, being aware of what I eat, the movement, my mental sort of fortitude and state in general. So that contributed to putting me on the path towards where I am right now. So I'm very fortunate to kind of be involved in a space that is empowering individuals to take better care of their health span.
Exactly. When right now there are no directions towards longevity, and especially we are living in the era of peptide and the weight loss. So that brings me to my first question. We believe, or we have confused weight loss with the health so far, and we came far too long. Scale has become the surrogate for well-being. So let's unpack that distinction.
Yeah, sure. So most people are really focusing on how they look more than how they feel on the inside. And a lot of the efforts that are being put towards weight loss is usually for aesthetic reasons. However, this is changing very quickly. There's a lot of people that are a lot more involved in trying to understand how fat loss and not just weight loss can contribute to my longevity and to my health span, more importantly. The unfortunate thing is that, as you rightly mentioned, there isn't enough education around the usage of things such as GLP-1 or any of the medications that we're seeing right now for weight loss or fat loss specifically. The biggest being, people take it, but they do not make any lifestyle changes.
Exactly.
So that is super important. The problem is that when we lose weight in that manner, we lose something extremely precious, which is muscle mass.
Exactly.
Muscle is the number one longevity organ. Without it, for both men and women, not just from the biological perspective, meaning as an endocrine organ or as a metabolic organ, it's also from the conserving life in the last decade or two, while most people expire because of a fall, of a broken hip, because of a weak musculoskeletal system that causes a tiny little fall, and then that kind of ends within a year. People expire. So strengthening muscle, your musculoskeletal system, for both men and women is essential. So when you risk it for an aesthetic reason without knowing or being educated about how to use it, for how long, and what sort of lifestyle changes you need to be making, it's a risk, unfortunately. And we see it every day with a lot of people. For women is even more so, because when we lose muscle...
I will just stop you here. This podcast for general public, you spoke amazing ideas. So you said endocrine organ. So I want to tell the audience that even as a doctor, when we were studying muscle, we were more into anatomy, isn't it? Origin, insertion, the blood supply and all those things. So I would want you to expand, because you brought a very important concept that it's an endocrine organ. So let's unpack that.
Yeah, so for the longest time, we didn't explore or think of muscle as an endocrine system, as part of the endocrine system. But now we know that it is. So it actually contributes to our release of hormones in the body. So we didn't know that before.
Yeah.
So that changes everything. So that
You know,
means
when you said that, I remember physiology. We didn't read muscle a lot in that, but when you see the anatomy, it's full of the muscles.
they still don't, unfortunately. So
Oh
even
my.
people that are graduating right now, they still don't learn about a lot of this.
That's very
So there's
important.
the speed of the space for the public, for the regular Joe, is moving much quicker than the education that is being taught in classrooms around the world. However, there are a lot of institutions that are really catching up, and there are many extra courses that are being run all over the place, everywhere internationally, actually, especially in our region as a leading geography when it comes to longevity and health span. There's a lot happening here to update people and educate them. Some of the best conferences and so on. So everyone, doctors, coaches, any health practitioner is now catching up. The important thing here to understand is that even though doctors play a major role in people's health span, they're not the only ones. When you think of longevity, it takes a village. Everyone is involved. Your personal trainer at the gym needs to understand what does that mean from a longevity perspective. Your nutritionist, even your family, the people that you spend time with. If you spend time with people that are not
Sedentary.
interested, they're not interested in their own health, it impacts you too. Now, thankfully, if you are, hopefully you'll impact them. But it's not always the case. So our environment, who we spend time with, the peer pressure that we are under, where we are in our stress environment, for example, what we eat, what we drink, how we take care of our own spaces, and so on. So the health span does not only live in a clinic. It's only a small part of it. Most of it is our responsibility as individuals to understand our environment and be educated as much as possible about it.
Yeah. So, people are damaging their metabolism in the pursuit of fat loss. And, they're doing a very common metabolic mistake. So, let's lay out that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, what happens is that, and this is super common right now, is that when people take any of the GLP-1s or any of the more recent medications such as retatrutide, what's happening here is that it limits, obviously, one of the things that it does is limit appetite. When they limit appetite, they end up eating less. But they're obviously told to work out, to do all of that stuff. But their protein intake is limited, and therefore the body becomes loaded, and they stop losing weight. Instead, they're losing everything.
Exactly.
And then they become weak and they lose energy and all of that. And some of them plateau too. So there's an effort, there is guidance that needs to be present in order to understand for a woman of that height, of that age, what would be the dosage, for how long, how would you manage everything else around it between your sleep, your movement, your food, etc. For a man of that age, and again, so there is no one size fits all, and not because my friend takes a certain amount of mg, then it must work for me. It doesn't work that way. So people need to seek guidance on what works for me.
So it has to be customized.
For the individual, for sure. And what we're seeing right now, unfortunately, is that people can buy something off online and they self-medicate without sort of doing a blood test to understand, their essential functions, how they're doing, especially the waste disposal system of the body, the liver, the kidneys, and so on. So because this is where the waste is going to be, taken care of.
Yeah.
So if you have a fatty liver, if your kidneys are not functioning properly, if they're loaded, if you're not hydrated enough, if you're not enough minerals and so on, you may end up with serious trouble. And we're seeing now, as I said, people after receiving incredible results of losing weight. They reach a place where they can't lose weight anymore, and the body is loaded. They're stressed more than ever. They don't sleep well. They're not eating enough, and so on. So hopefully, people after this and many endeavors like yours would make an effort to learn about how to use these things.
So basics are the same: sleep, stress,
Always.
lifestyle. They are not changing. But of course, I mean, GLP meds can add, but it has to be customized.
100%.
Amazing. So if someone says, I just want to lose weight, and real issue is metabolic resilience. So what you will wish they should ask the question instead of this one?
Yeah, so I would say if you're offered to take a GLP-1, your first reaction should be no, thank you. Just say no. That's one of my phrases that I use. Because once you start on it,
Yeah.
it's very hard to get off it, right? You need to be really clever about how you handle your biology, how well you eat, how well you work out, all of that in order to taper it off and kind of move away from it. Because for a lot of people, once they're off it, most of the weight comes back because the same old habits come back. And then you end up in the same place when actually some people end up with more fat and less muscle. So it's not just going back to your original weight. You're going back to your original weight, a weaker person, because you've gained more fat and less muscle. The first reaction I would say for most people is just, is it really for you? Are you looking for a shortcut? Is it something that you could do with simple lifestyle changes, such as better food, better sleep, more movement? And would that manage what you need? If you're looking to lose a few kgs, the way is not that. The GLP-1 is not the way. So remember that these medications were designed for obesity, for serious diseases. So they're obviously useful in every day, but they have to be very careful. And again, if it is a few kilograms, there are much better, safer ways of doing it that are long lasting and better for you.
But unfortunately, we have scales in our home. We seldom use measuring tape. Even if we are using it, that's for the waist,
Yes.
not for mid-arm circumference or the calf or the thigh. So what's your comment on that? Like, do people should be aware, like when they're measuring, it should not be just the scale, it should be more than that?
100%. So the number one thing that we do with people is a full body composition. And for certain individuals, we even go as far as a DEXA scan to make sure that every aspect of their body composition is clear for us. And then that is repeated on several occasions. So actually, for most of the clients that we work with, we do body composition on a weekly basis to understand the difference of percentage of fat versus lean muscle, to understand how the body is shifting and how is it changing, so we can make appropriate changes either to the dosage or lifestyle or food intake or calories or whatever. But also what we make is that we do, for example, a strength test of how strong is someone's grip, for example.
Exactly.
How well do they squat? Do they have anything in their body that would stop them from doing the necessary exercise for them to supplement what they're doing with their GLP-1 medication?
That's amazing. So, a skeletal muscle, it's not just a structural giving you a shape, but it's endocrine and it can be called longevity organ. And I love what you said that you check the grip, you check how well they squat. Now, my next question, these are the people who are under your care for some time, right? But I have general public sitting at home listening to us. They might want to ask, like, long-term what they should do. Like, if they want to do DEXA scan as just a screening, just like they do the blood pressure screening or the diabetes, how frequently they should go for the DEXA scan. And even when they're doing DEXA scan, something which they can do at home, like the weighing, when they're weighing themselves, what else they should do along?
So DEXA scan is the gold standard of what you should do. So it's not for everyone.
Okay.
And it's really super expensive. So it's not something that you could do on a weekly basis. Instead, even the 100 dirham body composition scale that you could get from Amazon or anywhere works just as well.
Wow.
Because you could do a baseline. So before you get started on your medication, you check out your body composition. It usually gives you certain numbers, such as your BMI, your the percentage of muscle versus fat. It will give you a few water in your body and a few other things. So it gives
Yeah.
you a few metrics, not like the DEXA scan, but it will give you something. If you use that as your baseline and you continue using the same machine, not every week a different machine because they will slightly differ. If you use the same one, you're able to track what is happening. So it doesn't have to be complicated or it doesn't have to be expensive. And most gyms have body composition machines. So if you go to a gym, you most likely have a free access to a body composition machine. The key thing here is to stick to the same machine and try to stick to the same time of day and the same condition that you do it. So let's say Monday morning, you do it every Monday morning and so on. With food, without food, whatever. So the same conditions and same day.
Amazing. But beside that, do you recommend like some measurements? Like people are obsessed with the waistline. We know it is important marker because it talks about visceral obesity, which also has a lot, it describes a lot. Like visceral obesity is something which determines in your health a lot. But what about muscle, like any measurements or anything?
No, they're not really necessary. These
Yeah.
machines, even the ones that you buy from online, like Amazon, they're actually quite advanced, and they will give you where your muscle is concentrated in the torso side and the lower part of the body, etc. And if you have imbalances, meaning that is your left leg has more muscle than your right leg or whatever, so it will give you all of that. So technology obviously is our helper if it's used properly.
Amazing.
So there is no need to kind of do something physical.
Okay, so we people talk about the fat loss, and we are here talking about the lean muscle mass, which is really important. And it's not just the muscle. When we talk about the muscle, we talk about insulin resistance, we talk about mitochondrial inefficiency, and silent inflammation. Let's lay out that one.
So that's why I love muscles so much. If there is one thing that you should, and it actually even help your mental health because it releases endorphins, it makes you feel better about yourself, you react better to others, and so on. So it works on so many different levels. There isn't a single organ in the body that does as much as the muscle does. However, as I said, most of us approach it from an aesthetic perspective, needing to look good rather than to have the perfect amount of muscle for a man or a woman at that particular age. The other misconception is that at a certain age, you're not able to put on muscle. And this is a major misconception. You could put on muscle at any age.
Amazing.
There is nothing holding you back. And if you consider of all of these benefits from, as you said, the endocrine, metabolism, insulin resistance, and so on, like, why wouldn't you do that? It's perhaps the best thing that you could do for your health span.
Amazing. Yeah, of course. Especially if it's a longevity organ, everyone would be interested.
Yeah.
So we talk about sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, that it might be old age thing, but we know it starts very early. So let's talk about that, how early it can start and why it accelerate in midlife.
Well, for every decade we lose muscle, and that's what sarcopenia is all about. Now, obviously, unless you're diseased or whatever, sarcopenia can happen in that. But we're talking about for the average individual, we all lose muscle as we grow older. Every decade we lose more and more of it. So it is even more important as we age to focus on muscle mass because obviously we're already losing some of it. And it starts as early as in our 20s. And if someone is not moving in their 20s or even in their teen years, they're not growing muscle. So you need to do some resistance work. So it is very important that the variety of exercise is there at any age for you to continue to put on muscle and to sort of counter the result of sarcopenia. And as I said earlier, there isn't a decade that you cannot put on muscle. You could be in your 70s and you do that. There are even studies for women post-menopause with brittle bones have, these studies have broken these women into two, one that would do resistance training and ones would not. And actually the resistance training group ended up with better composition of bones than when they started. So even post-menopause, you could still use muscle to impact your health, including your bone health.
Exactly. And at that time, bone health is really in question because estradiol fall affects the bone and it can make the brittle bones.
Exactly.
Now you came to the menopause and perimenopause. My next question is, people think that perimenopause is just a reproductive transition, but it is also metabolic inflection point.
Yes.
So biologically, let's lay out or talk about what's happening during this phase, not just reproductive, but muscle point of view.
Yeah, so unfortunately, muscle loss is accelerated. Fat begins to gather more around the midsection.
Exactly.
And obviously all of the other things that you are better equipped to talk about, between sleep disruption, heat flashes, hot flashes, and so on, disrupt sleep, which then disrupt mood, which then, disrupt your life completely.
Exactly.
It should be a time where you flourish, a time of renewal, a time to spend time with your grandkids, a time to spend time on yourself. After taking care of everyone in the family for such a long
And
time.
that is the time when you might be leading a meeting.
Exactly. So the important thing here is that again, muscle in that obviously it's a little more complicated than that. Consideration of HRT or all of these things that, depending on the individuals and their state and so on, would be of incredible benefit. And I see it daily again with a lot of the people that we work with.
Exactly. That's amazing. Maybe we'll do some other episode for menopause and perimenopause. Yeah. So muscle preservation, what I'm understanding from you, that's very primary for women, for men. So tell why it's so critical.
Yeah. So we touched on this a little bit. So if you only have so much time to work on some of all of your health, right?
Exactly.
We are busy lives. We have so much going on. So when people ask me, what is the one thing that I should be focused on in order to best preserve my health span and extend it for as long as possible, the answer is always muscle.
Yeah.
So, however, it is not. Nothing lives in silos, right? So everything is connected. In order to build muscle, you need to be focused on your nutrition. You need to be focused on your movement. You need guidance on that too. Now, you have nutrition and hydration and movement. The next aspect that is crucial, and this I cannot stress enough, this is where adaptation happens. This is where growth happens. And this is during recovery. So people go to the gym, they go every day, they do, they eat well, etc. But I'm not gaining because you're not giving your body enough time to recover.
Exactly.
So sleep is crucial this is where your growth happens, is when you recover. When you go to the gym, you're creating inflammation. You're creating tears in your muscle
Yeah.
and in your body. These get healed and the muscle becomes stronger when you recover, when you sleep.
Yeah.
So this is
Growth
where
hormone.
adaptation happens. So when next time you go to the gym, after you've rested well, you're able to do more. If you're continuously trying to create inflammation in the muscles and you're not giving it enough time to recover, you're just not going to get to where you need to going. So having balance in your approach for your plan, as you would any serious plan, be it your financial health, be it your kids' education, be it whatever, your health should be number one, because without it, you will not have financial health. Your kids won't be able to. So everything is based on it.
Amazing. I'm really interested because it looks like muscle is your specialty.
100%. It should be
That's
everyone's
amazing.
specialty.
Exactly. But you're very right. It's been ignored in the syllabus. So when it comes to the muscle, it was more of the anatomy thing than the physiology.
Yes.
So now let's talk about the GLP-based medications. So they are transforming obesity medicine. We know the surgeons must be hating it because, just before GLP.
Cosmetic, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, those surgeries were so common, and now you just take the session, you go to doctor, and you can take it. Anybody can write it. So they are like tremendous, like, but there are risks. So what concerns you the most about their current use?
Again, I think the most important thing is that for people to get guidance, and they
Yeah.
don't at the moment. Now, I wouldn't say that cosmetic surgeons are suffering because some people are losing so much weight so quickly that they end up with loose skin and things like that, and they still need the help of cosmetic
Exactly.
surgery, unfortunately. So, and that, losing weight quickly is not necessarily healthy, as you know.
Yeah.
So, it's all about education. It's all about getting the right help, getting someone who understands what they're doing. And if someone is pushing it on you, that means something is wrong, right? Unless you are chronic and with chronic disease, unless you are obese,
Or
people
resistant diabetes.
yes, absolutely. So this is what was created for,
Yeah.
right? So if you're none of these and someone is pushing this on you as a first solution, you should question that. As I said, always say no first.
Amazing. I'm really happy. Like this, all is out of syllabus,
Yes.
as we know. So now, rapid weight loss looks successful, look amazing on papers everywhere, but there's a hidden story: the lean muscle mass being lost. So let's illuminate the dangers in long term.
So what do you need to put on muscle? You need a few things. One is obviously resistance. Muscle only grows when you create small tears in it. How
Yeah.
do you create these tears? By
By
resistance
exercise.
training.
Yeah.
By carrying weight, by squatting, by doing movements where you're actually shifting weight around. And that
Yeah.
applies for everyone at any age, right? Obviously safely with the right guidance.
Yeah.
The other thing that you need is to feed those muscles, right? So protein is the number one currency for muscles. So fed well, moved well, you're already 2/3 of the way. The third aspect, as we mentioned earlier, is allowing the muscle enough time for it to recover so it becomes stronger. So when you create these tears and you allow it to recover, it will become it will create tissue to actually close those tears, and the muscle becomes bigger and therefore more capable of moving more weight and so on. So it is important to understand it's just science. There's no mystery to putting on muscle. It's just the mystery lies in the fact that we didn't get educated enough about what we're doing, or the sort of movements that we're doing, or the sort of food that is good for us, or doing body compositions, or allowing, for us to have a good night's sleep as often as possible, or any of the recovery methodologies such as saunas, or even just a light brisk walk, and being mindful of your recovery days during the week. They go a very long way towards your health.
So you think like walking is enough, or
As a workout, no. But
Yeah.
as a recovery sort of approach, it's amazing, because during walking you activate your lymphatic system, which is the drainage, it's the waste disposal system of your body, and it helps to remove things such as lactic
Endurance.
acids and things like that. And as you know, motion is lotion. So when you move, you feel better.
Exactly.
You have more blood going to the brain. So it's all. During a recovery day is never a rest day in a sense where you sit down and do nothing. Recovery is intentional. You have to move. Recovery day can be light yoga. Could be a stroll on the beach.
Yeah.
It could be a little bit of sauna and a walk. It could be so many massage, all sorts of stuff like that. But be intentional about it.
even you said sauna,
Yes,
so that could be for recovery.
100%.
But what I know that it also stimulates heat shock protein,
Yes.
and those also activate mitochondria. So
Which helps the muscle. Where does mitochondria live?
muscle.
In the muscles.
So, but like sauna has relaxation as well by releasing the substance,
Yes.
whatever not meant to be there through our sweat. Amazing. So, appetite suppression without resistance training, adequate protein feels incomplete. So, you recommend that foundations should not be skipped along with GLP. So, anybody taking GLP, they should also go for these things.
Simply put, there
Yeah.
are no shortcuts. There are no easy way outs.
Yeah.
You want to lose weight in a healthy way, you have to work on all of these different aspects. If you decide to do it without all of the different steps, you're going to end up in a worse shape than you started with.
Exactly.
Temporarily, it may feel that you're winning, but in the long term, you're not.
You also recommend creatine intake during exercise and all those
Yes,
things.
obviously supplements play a role. Creatine is one of them. It's one of the
Protein
most studied.
powders and all those things.
Possibly, but I would be selective with those because these are not all regulated.
Kidney.
There was a whole, sort of big news about some of them having heavy metals and stuff in them. Fact remains that everything that comes from the ground has heavy metals in it, so it's part of our environment. Our bodies have heavy metals in it. Is that what we don't want to see is increased amounts of heavy metals in our body. Now, should you focus only on protein powder? Of course not. There's nothing better than whole foods. But would it help your journey to occasionally have one? Absolutely. If you're choosing one, choose one that you know the source and maybe there is some oversight over it, meaning that the place they're made, it's clean, doesn't have bacteria and doesn't have heavy metals in it. So do your work. When you're buying a car, you shop around, you ask about all the other questions. But when buying stuff to put into our body, we just pick something off the shelf and we put it directly in our mouth.
I'm so happy to hear that because some of the gynecologists are recommending protein powders to pregnant ladies. Since it's not my space, I didn't know this all information you're explaining. Amazing. So I'll be discouraging at least for pregnant ladies.
Not necessarily discouraging, but looking at the source. Like, where is it coming from? If you're buying one from the supermarket that is, whatever, some products in the supermarkets are pretty good, but look at the label, read what's in it, see if there's sugar in it. Is there any other additives, preservatives, that sort of thing. Look at the brand and find out how clean are they? Do they have a track record? And not just pick up the
I'm
worst
talking
one.
about pregnant ladies.
Yeah, for
they
everyone.
They could be laced also.
Yes, 100%.
When they're laced,
Yeah.
they don't describe this stuff.
Yeah.
So now, you say GLP medications, they can be tools, but not to be prescribed by everybody. It should be better with the structured longevity strategy.
100%.
So people who know how to work around that, they should be the one who will be prescribing rather than every doctor just, they're costly also. So when you write, you actually give a business to your pharmacy also.
It's not a shortcut. Let's put it that way. It's not a shortcut.
Yeah, amazing. There should be some regulations around it.
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So people think, I was in the longevity conference, I will not reference. So somebody just talked in the stage that take GLP and then take peptides for building muscle. So it felt more like that you're just sitting and just having those injections and having your best form, best life. Should it be the way, like those encouragement, like take GLP for weight loss and then take peptides for muscle build? And I felt, wow, like where are the foundations? It's biologically unrealistic. Yeah,
it couldn't be further from the truth. That's not true at all. So peptides are hailed as if they are miracle drugs or supplements or whatever you want to call them. They are not.
Yeah.
First of all, they already exist in our body. More than 300,000 of them are produced every day in our body. They do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But they only work well when the body is healthy and is doing well. And how does the body, become healthy and doing well? Is by eating well, resting well. Your mental health is where it needs to be. Your emotional, psychological state is good. You're moving regularly. You're doing all the right exercises. Now, once you layer that with certain peptides, they can have amazing benefits. But on their own, they do not. And again, the same thing applies because GLP-1s are also peptides.
Exactly.
So the way they are dosed, the dosages for them, the sources, the oversight on them, because they can also include bacteria and heavy metals and all sorts of, depending where they're made.
Even
right?
those injections can help.
100%. And, they're again very expensive. And now you could buy them all over the place. And people are experimenting with them. But it becomes part of a larger plan. You need to have a strategy when you're using something like that. Again, it's literally like picking something off the floor and putting it in your mouth. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know where. So trusting a source to guide you through it is very important. And then obviously doing all the right things. So if someone is telling you all you need is this, it's not true. All of the foundational work is always applicable. You cannot do without it. Yeah. So there are no magic pills.
So amazing. So yeah, therapeutic interventions are there, but they're not performance shortcuts. You have to do what you have to do.
100%.
Amazing. So, but there is ethical responsibility to all doctors who are writing it. It's being prescribed. I can tell you, even my colleagues there self-injecting is also a thing.
Yeah.
It's happening. A lot of doctors are doing because probably we are we don't have a lot of time also. We are, chasing goals, targets. We are living that era where it's all the race. What's your take on hormones, like their testosterone being also prescribed for muscle build and everything?
I would be very, very, very careful. I can't stress that enough. Because once you get on testosterone, your body shuts down and doesn't make testosterone anymore. So it's very important that if you are going to go on TRT, that it is again the last resort that the body needs, specifically that, and it needs to be under proper testing and proper guidance before you decide to go on any hormonal replacement therapy for both women and men. Does it work? Yes, of course it does, because it's what we need to perform optimally. Now, should it be taken just because? Of course not, because as I said, you'll be on it for the rest of your life, first of all. Some of it is quite invasive, even though it comes in gel and creams and all sorts of things. And there are certain things that you could take that are not as extreme as testosterone replacement or any hormonal replacement. There are supplements, there are even foods, whole foods that will help to boost your own system to produce more hormones. But also, we know, and as we said at the beginning, is that if you build muscle, it's an endocrine system. It also helps with your hormones. If you eat well and sleep well and rest, if your sleep is adequate, your hormones are most likely adequate too. Now, as we age, obviously our systems become slower, they don't produce, but we can help them. We can help them if we're educated.
Amazing. Some of the people take in postmenopause also, menopause, testosterone replacements or supplements. Not necessarily they have to be replacement. So what's your take on that?
It's case by case, I would say. And having someone like you, for example, guide them through it is very important.
Yeah.
Instead of them deciding, oh, my neighbor does that or my sister took and it's good for her. No two people are the same, right? So it's very important that the person receives the correct testing to see if this is really what is happening. Sometimes what may look as a test, any hormone deficiency, it could be as somewhere upstream or downstream that we can fix in order for it to go back and the body does what it does best. And that could be done with the help of a professional.
Amazing. That's very nice. Not necessarily we give for HRT, we give estradiol and progesterone. We don't talk much about the testosterone. If you are aware, from 2002 to 2022, even HRT wasn't available. It's very recent thing. Yes. So as you said, like longevity is not available in the book, menopause is also not available in the book. So we all are doing special certifications for menopause, HRT, but still testosterone has reservations. It's not a thing being given.
Yep.
But I felt like some of my doctors, some of my old friends, they said they are on testosterone supplements and they were really talking high about it. And then you start questioning that, are you slacking in something when you're giving HRT, which is just the estradiol and progesterone. So but probably this is also a space to be explored further. So now people like now they understand that muscle is really important, and muscle is something for longevity. And you said even a teen can be having sarcopenia
course.
if it's their lifestyle. So do you want to tell something to people that now what they can do day to day basis? Like everybody can't be ending up longevity clinic to learn more. So general public, while they're in their home, the young ladies, young boys, kids, mom telling their kids what they really can incorporate in their daily life to have a better muscle mass.
So normally, what I insist, well, not insist, but let people know or have them think about is that we get motivated quite a bit. We see something online and we say we're going to look like that. I would rather do this. I want to. Someone they hear me speak and they say, "Oh my God, I need to start." The problem is motivation always wanes. You need to be able to shift into discipline. Your health. The first thing you need to decide on is what is my priority. What is it that I have that I put on my priority list? If your health is not number one, you have it upside down. Because as we discussed earlier, everything that you love, everything that you do, everything that you hold dear, your future, who you are right now, is all dependent on your health. All you have to do is feel unwell for whatever reason, and your world changes. So that's something that we need to be reminded of, that when we get our priorities right, it becomes part of our lifestyle. It's not something you think about and have to get out of your way to work on. If you think of what you do on a day-to-day basis, stuff that come naturally, whatever it is, be it eating too much sugar or picking up food from a gas station or not planning, your workout routines and all of the things that really matter to build that aspect. But instead you say, I'm busy, I'm building a career, all of that. All it takes is one, and you've experienced this on a day-to-day basis. It takes one tiny ailment and that whole world falls apart, right? But when you're healthy and strong, you are actually empowered to even do more. You think clearer. You can work harder. You could do more. You could excel more than others, right? It's not a competition, but we are better individuals when we are healthier, right? When you're unwell or you're driving a car and someone cuts you off, the way you react to that is very different than someone who is well, calm, strong. They won't even notice it maybe, right? So our reactions to our environment changes when we are healthy. So the key element here is make a decision. Make a decision and be clear about it. One, no shortcuts. There's work that needs to be done. And two, what is your priority? And try to shift motivation to discipline.
Amazing. I can relate to what you said. So as I told you, I have a recent surgery. So otherwise, I will not think twice before pushing the door of any room in my hospital. So yesterday when I was pushing the doors, I realized this is all resistance. And then I used to stop. So one time yesterday, I have to open one of the labor room door, which is actually like that. And I just stood there and I start making calls to the nurses that come and open the door. It doesn't happen naturally, normally. So tell me, what's your take on NAD injections? Because they're also there, like mitochondrial stimulation and...
Yeah, so NAD or NAD plus or whatever, this is the currency of our mitochondria. It's the energy. It's what feeds ATP. What that lives in our mitochondria, which is basically the engines of our whole body. So again, where does it live? In the muscle. This is what we want more of. Obviously it's gone a little crazy with like everything else, because people think if I do this, then that's... Now it's important to boost our NAD plus, and usually for people that take care of their health or lifestyle, they're not short of NAD plus. They don't need to boost it more, because when you sleep well, eat well, move enough, your NAD is sufficient. Now, it's gone in popularity because obviously it helps the whole system, be it part of the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the whole body, including mental health, the production of skin, of cells in general, and so on. So, does it work? I mean, now they're coming up with all sorts of things, and some are oral and so on. We know for a fact that I mean, it does work to a certain extent, but it's not as hyped as it is. Some don't even cross the cell barrier because of there's been so much studies about it right now. So my usual advice for people is to do the prerequisites of NAD+, to take stuff that will supplement, if you need it, to help boost your NAD+ naturally. If you're going to take NAD+, I prefer microdosing than, for example, IV drips. That's my personal preference. But again, that's what works for me. You need to speak to a professional to see, does it work for you? But in general, as I said at the beginning, if you're a healthy individual that eats well, sleeps well, and moves enough, you generally don't need NAD+.
Amazing. What about NMN? There's a Dr. David Sinclair who's just promoting that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, are there indications that it is useful to build NAD+ in the body naturally?
So how they compare NMN?
So NMN is a prerequisite for NAD+. Exactly. So we need it in our body in order for our bodies to make NAD+. So, but it's like any supplement. First of all, it's not regulated. It means some of them work, some of them are not, some of them are fillers, some of them this. So we know a lot. And as it became popular, commercialism comes in. And then obviously people start cutting corners and things like that. So we don't know much about it. And what we know for a fact is that there are no completed human trials on NMN. However, there is a variant of it that is the chloride version of it under the brand, what's it called now? I'll think of the name in a minute. That is there are actually some human trials that you could use. True Niagen. True Niagen, that brand specifically, it's actually still patented for that brand. That version of it as a prerequisite for NAD+, there are actual human studies that have shown that it improved NAD+. NMN on the other hand is not done yet. It's still in the works. So we don't know as much. And again, because it's not regulated, we don't know what's clean and what's not. So I like, if I'm putting something in my body, I need to know where it's coming, where is it made.
And you prefer NAD IV rather than...
I prefer microdosing than an IV, meaning like with a pen or whatever. Again,
cutaneous, yeah.
Yes.
Amazing, yeah. Wow. Do you have any take on berberine?
It can be useful for people, but the problem is that people don't realize how much you need to be taking. You need to be taking quite a bit of berberine to make an effective results on your insulin, your blood sugar, and so on. So does it work? Yes. Is it more natural and better than some of the other alternatives? For sure. However, I think people usually take too little of it, and they don't see the reaction that they would like to see. Again, with a professional, they'll be able to
How
tell
much
you
you
exactly.
recommend for
It depends on the individual. Depends on the individual. Generally, the dosages that come in the bottles are too little to make a big impact.
Okay. So I work in PCO space also. So I have people like who took Sophie, the dose recommended by those company people, and it worked.
Yeah.
And I have some people, sometimes, all the medication, I have infertility people also. So there's one patient, glucophage, Sophie, and some of these meds, and she become pregnant.
Yeah.
So actually we are suffering and we don't know. So even a small help, which might not be even to a threshold, may work.
100%, because the body has to work in balance. If our sugar is off, if our hormones are off, if our gut is not healthy, people doesn't, the body doesn't function. As I said, no organ works in silo. They all work together.
Exactly. So whatever you are saying, it's not just longevity. It should be the part of mainstream medicine, because we are living sedentary with processed food, and a lot is happening, so much stress. And with that, people, metabolism is just tripped.
Yes.
And they don't know that. And with the small help, which might not be even of strength, they get helped. and they become pregnant. PCO patients not having periods, they start having periods. One of my patient, she was about to go to IVF, and she just started doing gym, and wow, she's pregnant. So now I get surprised that I just explain, I talk about it also, and I relate whatever you are saying to the book Gene Eating by Giles, where he talks about talks against every diet, and he said why every diet work, and he talks about that it's all simply in and out. It's just a equation, and then he talks why the protein work, why the fiber work, why everything works. So it's not rocket science. It's all the same foundation and basics which we knew all the time. Now, with this all amazing conversation, I would want you to just, that's the camera, give some message to our audience.
Well, I mean, the message I think is what we've been saying throughout the whole episode is that check your priorities. If your health is not your number one priority, you have it upside down. Please take care of yourselves and of each other.
Amazing. And it takes a village. So you don't do it alone. You do it with the company.
With your family, with your trainers, with your nutritionist, with your doctor, of course. Everything works together for sure.
Amazing. So what I took this from this conversation, that health is not something to chase in panic, but it is something which is built in awareness, day to day, small, consistent decision, that as I realize that just pushing the door, which is very heavy, can actually is a resistance training, which I am supposed to avoid these days.
Yes.
Amazing, Dr. Rashid. I would love to have you again, and this talk was really amazing, because this is the thing which are very simple, but the world needs to know. These messages are very important for everyday health, for everyday decisions. Thank you for coming to our space.
My pleasure, my pleasure. They may be simple, but they are hard. We all need each other in order to be supported to get the best health span possible. Thank you for having me.